Officer Sarah Martinez had been working with her German Shepherd partner, Rex, for 3 years. They made an incredible team on the streets of downtown Chicago. Rex was not just any police dog. He was specially trained to detect drugs, explosives, and track suspects. His nose could pick up scents that humans could never imagine detecting. Sarah remembered the day she first met Rex at the police training facility. He was just 18 months old then, full of energy and eager to please. The trainer told her that Rex had something special about him. "This dog has instincts that go beyond his training," the trainer had said. "Trust him when he tries to tell you something." Over the years, Sarah learned to read Rex's body language like a book. When his ears perked up in a certain way, she knew he had caught an interesting scent. When his tail moved in quick, short wags, it meant he was excited about a discovery. When he pulled hard on his leash in a specific direction, she had learned to follow without question. Rex had helped solve dozens of cases. He once found a missing child who had wandered into an abandoned building. Another time, he detected drugs hidden inside fake water bottles at the airport. Just last month, he had tracked down a robbery suspect who thought he could hide in the city's underground tunnels. Rex found him in 20 minutes. The partnership between Sarah and Rex was built on complete trust. Sarah made sure Rex got the best food, regular vet checkups, and plenty of exercise. Rex, in return, was completely loyal to Sarah. He would follow her commands without hesitation, but he also knew when to take the lead. On this particular Tuesday morning in October, Sarah and Rex were patrolling the downtown area near the courthouse district. It was supposed to be a routine day. They had already checked the subway station, walked through the main shopping area, and stopped by the school zone to ensure everything was safe. Sarah noticed that Rex seemed more alert than usual. His nose was working overtime, constantly sniffing the air. His ears kept turning in different directions, picking up sounds that Sarah couldn't hear. She had seen this behavior before when Rex was onto something important. "What is it, boy?" Sarah asked, looking down at her four-legged partner. Rex looked up at her with his intelligent brown eyes and then turned his attention back to the street ahead. They continued their patrol, walking past the familiar buildings and businesses. The autumn weather was perfect, not too hot, not too cold. People were out enjoying their lunch breaks, sitting on benches and walking through the small park scattered throughout the downtown area. As they approached the courthouse building, Rex's behavior changed dramatically. He stopped walking and stood perfectly still, his entire body tense with concentration. His nose was pointed directly toward the large, imposing courthouse building that housed multiple courtrooms and offices. Sarah had worked this beat long enough to know that the courthouse was usually a quiet place during the afternoon hours. Most of the trials and hearings happened in the morning. By this time of day, the building was mostly empty, except for security guards and administrative staff. Rex took a step forward, then another. Sarah could feel the tension in his leash as he began pulling gently toward the courthouse entrance. This wasn't his usual excited pulling when he found something interesting. This was different, more focused, more determined. "Rex, what's going on?" Sarah asked again, but she was already reaching for her radio to inform dispatch of their location. Something in Rex's behavior told her this wasn't going to be an ordinary afternoon. Rex's training had taught him to alert his handler to many different types of threats and discoveries. But Sarah had never seen him act quite like this before. There was an urgency in his movements that made her pay close attention. The courthouse steps were mostly empty. A few people in business suits were coming and going, probably lawyers or court staff finishing up their work for the day. Security guards stood at their usual positions near the metal detectors at the entrance. Rex pulled harder now, not toward the main entrance, but toward a side entrance that Sarah knew led to the lower-level courtrooms. These courtrooms were used for smaller cases and preliminary hearings. They were often empty in the afternoons. Sarah checked her watch. It was 2:30 p.m. She knew that most court sessions would be finished by now. The building would be quiet, with only essential personnel remaining inside. As they got closer to the side entrance, Rex's excitement increased. His tail was wagging, but not in a playful way. It was the kind of wagging Sarah had learned meant that Rex had found something significant. His nose was working constantly, taking in all the scents around the area. Sarah made the decision to follow Rex's lead. In 3 years of partnership, he had never led her astray. Every time he had insisted on investigating something, it had turned out to be important. She trusted his instincts completely. The security guard at the side entrance recognized Sarah and Rex. They were regular visitors to the courthouse area during their patrols. "Afternoon, Officer Martinez," the guard said with a friendly nod. "Everything okay?" "Rex seems to have picked up on something," Sarah explained. "Would it be all right if we took a quick look around the lower level?" The guard glanced down at Rex, who was now sitting perfectly still but remained alert and focused. "Sure thing. Most of the courtrooms down there are empty anyway. Judge Williams finished his last case about an hour ago." Sarah thanked the guard and followed Rex through the metal detector. Rex walked through calmly, as he had done many times before during their courthouse visits. But once they were inside, his behavior changed again. Rex immediately turned left toward the hallway that led to the lower-level courtrooms. His steps were quick and purposeful. Sarah had to walk faster than usual to keep up with him. The hallway was quiet and dimly lit. Their footsteps echoed off the marble floors and high ceilings. Rex's claws clicked against the floor as he moved with determination toward an unknown destination that only he seemed to know about. Rex moved down the courthouse hallway with purpose, his nose constantly working to follow whatever scent had captured his attention. Sarah followed closely behind, her hand resting on her radio in case she needed to call for backup. The lower level of the courthouse felt different from the main floors, quieter, more isolated with fewer people around. The hallway stretched ahead of them, lined with heavy wooden doors leading to various courtrooms and administrative offices. Most of the doors were closed, and the nameplates beside them indicated judges, clerks, and court reporters. The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead, casting long shadows on the polished marble floor. Rex stopped suddenly outside courtroom 3B. Sarah looked up at the nameplate next to the door. The Honorable Judge Patricia Williams, Criminal Court. She knew Judge Williams by reputation. The judge was known for being fair but strict, with over 20 years of experience handling criminal cases. What puzzled Sarah was Rex's behavior. He wasn't just alerting to something, he seemed almost anxious. His breathing was faster than normal, and he kept looking back at Sarah as if asking for permission to continue. Sarah tried the door handle. To her surprise, it was unlocked. She pushed the door open slowly, and Rex immediately walked inside without hesitation. The courtroom was empty and dark, with only the emergency lighting providing a dim glow. The courtroom looked exactly like what Sarah expected: rows of wooden benches for spectators, a jury box on one side, and the judge's bench elevated at the front. Everything appeared normal and undisturbed. Cleaning crews had obviously been through recently, as the room smelled of floor polish and disinfectant. Rex walked straight down the center aisle between the spectator benches. His movement was controlled but determined. Sarah followed, wondering what could possibly be drawing his attention in an empty courtroom. There were no obvious signs of anything unusual. No papers scattered around, no evidence of recent activity. No strange odors that she could detect. When Rex reached the front of the courtroom, he did something that surprised Sarah. Instead of heading toward the judge's bench or the witness stand, he turned toward the side and approached the court reporter's desk area. This was a smaller section of the courtroom where the person responsible for recording everything said during trials would sit with their special typing machine. Rex circled around the court reporter's desk twice, his nose practically touching the floor. Then he moved toward a built-in wooden bench that ran along the wall nearby. This bench was used for court staff to sit when they weren't actively working. It was a simple piece of furniture, nothing fancy, just solid wood construction that matched the rest of the courtroom's traditional design. Sarah watched as Rex approached the bench and began sniffing intensely along its base. His tail was wagging now, but in the controlled way that meant he was working, not playing. He moved from one end of the bench to the other, paying special attention to the area where the bench met the wall. "What have you found, Rex?" Sarah whispered, even though there was no one around to overhear. The empty courtroom made every sound seem louder than normal. Rex sat down directly in front of the bench and looked up at Sarah. This was his trained signal that he had found something important. In their 3 years together, Sarah had learned that when Rex sat and stared at her like this, she needed to investigate whatever he was indicating. Sarah knelt down beside the bench and examined it closely. From the surface, everything looked completely normal. The wood was well maintained, polished, and showed the natural wear you would expect from years of use in a busy courtroom. There were no obvious scratches, marks, or damage that would indicate anything unusual. She ran her hands along the bench's surface, feeling for anything out of place. The wood was smooth and solid. She checked the area where the bench was attached to the wall, looking for loose screws or any signs that it had been tampered with recently. Rex remained sitting in his alert position, watching Sarah's every move. His eyes moved between Sarah and the specific spot on the bench that had caught his attention. Sarah could tell he wanted her to keep investigating. Getting down on her hands and knees, Sarah looked under the bench. The space underneath was shadowy and difficult to see clearly. She used her flashlight to illuminate the area better. What she saw was exactly what she expected. Dust, a few old pieces of paper that had probably been dropped and forgotten, and the normal construction elements of the bench's support structure. But Rex's interest hadn't decreased at all. If anything, he seemed more focused now. He had moved to a sitting position directly beside a specific section of the bench, about 2 feet from the left end. His nose was pointed downward toward the floor area beneath that exact spot. Sarah realized she needed to look more carefully. Rex's training was too extensive and his track record too good for him to be wrong about this. There had to be something she was missing. She positioned herself to get a better angle under the bench. Using her flashlight more systematically, she began examining every inch of the space beneath where Rex was indicating. The floor under the bench was the same marble as the rest of the courtroom, but this area would rarely be cleaned thoroughly since it was hidden from normal view. That's when Sarah noticed something that didn't quite fit. Near the wall, directly under the spot where Rex had focused his attention, there appeared to be a small area where the marble pattern looked slightly different. It was subtle, so subtle that someone would have to be looking for it to notice. Sarah moved closer and realized that what she was seeing wasn't just a difference in the marble pattern. There was actually a small section of the floor that appeared to have been cut and then carefully replaced. The cuts were so precise and well done that they would be invisible to anyone not examining the area closely. Rex's tail wagged faster as Sarah focused on this area. She could tell by his body language that she was getting closer to whatever had attracted his attention in the first place. Sarah sat back on her heels and considered her options. Whatever Rex had found was clearly beneath the floor in this specific location. The precision of the cuts suggested that this wasn't accidental damage or normal wear and tear. Someone had deliberately cut into the floor and then replaced the section carefully enough that it would go unnoticed during normal use of the courtroom. The question now was what to do about it. Sarah knew she couldn't just start tearing up the floor of a courthouse on her own. This was going to require proper authorization, documentation, and probably the presence of courthouse security and administrative staff. But Rex's behavior told her that whatever was hidden beneath that floor was important enough to warrant immediate attention. Sarah pulled out her radio and contacted dispatch to inform them of the situation. "This is Officer Martinez, badge number 1247. I'm at the courthouse with K9 Rex, and we've discovered what appears to be a deliberate modification to the floor in courtroom 3B. Requesting supervisor and courthouse security to respond." Within minutes, Sarah heard footsteps in the hallway. Sergeant Mike Thompson, her supervisor, arrived first, followed by the courthouse security chief Robert Hayes. Judge Williams, who had apparently been in her chambers finishing paperwork, also came down to see what was happening. "What's the situation, Martinez?" Sergeant Thompson asked as he entered the courtroom. Rex remained in his alert position beside the bench, demonstrating his professional training by staying focused despite the arrival of multiple people. Sarah explained how Rex had led her to this specific location and what she had discovered beneath the bench. She showed them the nearly invisible cuts in the marble floor and explained Rex's behavior throughout the entire incident. Judge Williams approached the bench area and knelt down to examine the floor herself. As someone who had worked in this courtroom for over 15 years, she knew every detail of the space. "I've never noticed anything unusual about this area," she said, studying the subtle marks Sarah had pointed out. "These cuts are so precise that they would be completely invisible during normal court proceedings. Security?" Chief Hayes contacted the courthouse maintenance department to get the proper tools for investigating further. "We need to be very careful here," he explained. "If there's something hidden beneath the floor, we want to preserve any evidence and document everything properly." While they waited for the maintenance crew, Rex continued to maintain his alert position. Sarah gave him some water from her portable bowl, but he was too focused on the area beneath the bench to be interested in drinking. His commitment to the discovery was impressive, even by police dog standards. Judge Williams seemed particularly concerned about the situation. "This courtroom handles sensitive criminal cases," she explained. "We've had trials involving organized crime, drug trafficking, and financial fraud. If someone has hidden something here, it could be related to any number of cases." 20 minutes later, the maintenance crew arrived with the necessary equipment to carefully remove the section of marble floor that Rex had indicated. The operation required precision to avoid damaging any potential evidence while also preserving the courtroom itself. The head maintenance supervisor, Carlos Rivera, examined the cuts in the floor closely. "These are professional-grade cuts," he confirmed. "Whoever did this had access to specialized tools and knew exactly what they were doing." The marble was cut, removed, and then replaced so carefully that the lines are barely visible. Using careful measurements and precise tools, the maintenance crew began the process of removing the cut section of floor. Rex watched intently, his excitement clearly building as they got closer to revealing what lay beneath. Judge Williams suggested that they contact the district attorney's office and the police crime scene unit. "Whatever we find here could be crucial evidence in an ongoing case, or it might provide information about a case we haven't even discovered yet," she said. As the maintenance crew worked, Security Chief Hayes reviewed the courthouse security footage for the past several months. "I want to see if we can identify when this modification was made and who might have had access to the courtroom during off hours," he explained. The process of removing the marble section took almost an hour. The crew had to work slowly and carefully to avoid damaging whatever might be hidden underneath. Rex remained patient but alert throughout the entire process, never leaving his position or losing interest in the area. Sarah stayed close to Rex, monitoring his behavior for any changes that might indicate they were getting closer to the actual discovery. His body language suggested that whatever was hidden beneath the floor was substantial enough to maintain his interest over an extended period. Finally, the maintenance crew successfully removed the cut section of marble. Beneath it was a small, carefully excavated space in the concrete foundation of the building. The space was approximately 12 inches square and about 6 inches deep, just large enough to hide something significant. Rex's excitement increased dramatically as the hidden space was revealed. His tail wagged faster and he tried to move closer to get a better look at what was inside. Sarah gently held him back to preserve the integrity of the scene. Judge Williams, Sergeant Thompson, and Security Chief Hayes gathered around the opening to see what had been hidden there. The space contained a small waterproof container that appeared to have been placed there deliberately. The container was sealed and showed no signs of water damage or deterioration. "Nobody touch anything," Sergeant Thompson instructed. "We need to photograph everything exactly as we found it before we disturb the scene any further." Sarah took several photos with her cell phone while they waited for the crime scene unit to arrive. The hidden container was clearly visible in the excavated space, along with what appeared to be some additional materials wrapped in plastic. Rex continued to show intense interest in the discovery, confirming that his nose had accurately detected whatever was inside the container. His behavior suggested that the contents were significant enough to warrant his sustained attention throughout the entire investigation. Judge Williams stepped back from the scene and shook her head in amazement. "In all my years on the bench, I've never encountered anything like this," she said. "Someone went to extraordinary lengths to hide something in my courtroom." Security Chief Hayes was already making arrangements for a complete security review of the courthouse. "We need to determine how someone could have accessed this courtroom long enough to cut into the floor and hide something without being detected," he said. The crime scene unit arrived within 30 minutes, bringing additional equipment and expertise to properly document and recover whatever had been hidden beneath the floor. Detective Lisa Chen, who specialized in evidence recovery, took charge of the scene. "This is definitely professional work," Detective Chen confirmed after examining the hidden space. "The excavation is precise, the container appears to be specifically designed for long-term concealment, and the floor replacement was done with expert skill." Rex finally received the praise he deserved for his discovery. Sarah gave him his favorite treat and told him what a good boy he was. His tail wagged with satisfaction, but he still kept one eye on the hidden container, as if making sure no one would try to move it without proper investigation. Detective Chen carefully photographed the hidden container from every angle before attempting to remove it from its concealed location. The container appeared to be made of high-quality stainless steel with rubber sealing around the edges clearly designed to protect its contents from moisture and time. Rex remained alert and focused as the detective worked. His training had taught him to stay calm during evidence recovery, but Sarah could tell he was excited about the discovery. His years of service had led to many important finds, but this felt different somehow. Using sterile gloves and evidence bags, Detective Chen carefully lifted the container from its hiding place. It was heavier than expected, suggesting substantial contents inside. The container was approximately 8 inches long, 6 inches wide, and 4 inches deep, large enough to hold significant materials. Judge Williams watched nervously as the detective examined the container's sealing mechanism. "I have to admit, I'm both curious and concerned about what someone felt was important enough to hide in my courtroom," she said. The container had a simple but effective locking mechanism that had been engaged to secure the contents. Detective Chen photographed the lock and then used a specialized tool to open it without damaging any potential evidence inside. As the container opened with a soft click, everyone in the courtroom leaned forward slightly to see what had been hidden beneath their feet. For who knows how long, Rex's nose twitched as new scents were released from the container. Inside the container, Detective Chen found several items wrapped in clear plastic bags. The first item she removed was a thick manila envelope, sealed and labeled with what appeared to be a case number that none of them recognized immediately. The second item was a small digital recording device, the kind that could store hours of audio recordings. It was a professional-grade device, not a simple consumer recorder. The device appeared to be in good condition despite its time in hiding. The third item was what looked like a collection of photographs, also sealed in plastic to protect them from moisture. Detective Chen could see through the plastic that the photographs showed people, but she couldn't make out the details without opening the package. The fourth and most intriguing item was a small external hard drive, professionally sealed and protected. This type of storage device could hold massive amounts of digital information, documents, videos, financial records, or any other type of data someone might want to preserve or hide. Judge Williams moved closer to examine the items. "That case number on the envelope," she said, pointing to the manila folder. "I don't recognize the format. It's not consistent with our current case numbering system." Detective Chen carefully opened the manila envelope using proper evidence procedures. Inside were dozens of documents, all appearing to be copies of official court papers, financial records, and what looked like correspondence between various parties. As she examined the first few documents, Detective Chen's expression grew serious. These appear to be related to financial transactions and court cases. "But some of these dates go back several years," she said. Sarah noticed that Rex had moved closer to Detective Chen and was showing particular interest in the digital recording device. His nose was pointed directly at it, and his body language suggested that this item specifically had captured his attention from the beginning. "Rex seems especially interested in that recording device," Sarah observed. "His training includes detection of electronic devices that might contain important information." Judge Williams requested that they contact the district attorney immediately. "If these items are related to court cases, especially cases that have been heard in this courtroom, we need legal oversight before we examine them further," she said. Security Chief Hayes was already on his phone with courthouse administration and the building's legal department. The discovery of hidden materials in a courtroom was unprecedented and required careful handling to ensure that any potential evidence would be admissible in court proceedings. Detective Chen continued her initial examination of the materials. The photographs, still sealed in their protective plastic, appeared to show meetings between people in what looked like official settings. Some of the images seemed to have been taken covertly, without the subject's knowledge. The hard drive was labeled with a date from 3 years ago and had several small stickers that appeared to be some kind of coding system. Detective Chen recognized this as the type of labeling used by professionals who handle sensitive digital information. Judge Williams studied the documents that had been removed from the envelope. Her face grew pale as she read through several pages. "These documents, some of them reference cases that were heard in this courtroom," she said quietly. "What kind of cases?" Sergeant Thompson asked. Judge Williams continued reading, her expression becoming more concerned with each page. Financial fraud, organized crime, public corruption. These are all high-profile cases that involved significant sentences and large financial judgments. Rex had settled into a lying position, but remained alert. His eyes fixed on the evidence that had been recovered. Sarah could tell that he was satisfied with his work, but still monitoring the situation carefully. Detective Chen sealed each item in separate evidence bags and began filling out the chain of custody documentation. We're going to need to examine these materials in a controlled environment with proper legal oversight, she said. The digital recording device and hard drive would require specialized equipment to examine safely without potentially damaging any data they contained. The courthouse IT department was contacted to coordinate with law enforcement technical specialists. Judge Williams requested that her chambers be secured and that a complete review of all cases heard in Courtroom 3B over the past 5 years be initiated. If someone went to these lengths to hide information related to cases in my courtroom, we need to determine the scope of what we're dealing with, she said. As the crime scene team finished documenting the discovery site, Sarah reflected on Rex's incredible detection work. His ability to locate the hidden container had potentially uncovered something that could impact multiple court cases and legal proceedings. The maintenance crew began the process of properly repairing the floor, but first they conducted a thorough search of the entire courtroom to ensure no other hidden items were present. Rex assisted in this search but showed no interest in any other areas of the room. Within 2 hours of Rex's initial discovery, the courthouse had become the center of a significant investigation involving multiple law enforcement agencies and legal departments. The simple afternoon patrol had uncovered what appeared to be a carefully planned concealment of potentially crucial evidence. Judge Williams stood looking at the evidence bags containing the mysterious items. I've presided over thousands of cases in this courtroom, she said to no one in particular. I never imagined that someone had hidden evidence right beneath my feet all this time. 3 hours later, the courthouse conference room had been converted into a secure examination area where law enforcement officials, legal experts, and IT specialists worked together to safely review the hidden materials. District Attorney Rebecca Foster had arrived personally to oversee the IGIM investigation. Judge Williams sat quietly as the digital recording device was connected to specialized equipment that could play its contents without risking damage to the original files. The tension in the room was obvious as everyone waited to discover what had been considered important enough to hide beneath the courtroom floor. Rex lay beside Sarah's chair, still alert but calmer now that his work was complete. Sarah gave him occasional reassurance while watching the unfolding investigation. She had never been involved in a discovery this significant during her career. The IT specialist, David Kim, successfully accessed the recording device and discovered it contained over 40 hours of audio recordings. The files were organized by date, spanning a period of 18 months, approximately 3 years ago. The first recording is dated March 15th, 3 years ago, David announced. Should I begin playback? District Attorney Foster nodded, and the room fell silent as the first recording began to play. What they heard immediately captured everyone's attention. The recording contained a conversation between 2 men, discussing specific court cases that had been heard in Courtroom 3B. The men were talking about influencing case outcomes, manipulating evidence presentation, and coordinating with individuals inside the courthouse system. Judge Williams listened with growing shock as she heard detailed discussions about cases she remembered presiding over. The conversations included specific information about jury selection, evidence that had been presented, and even comments about her own decisions from the bench. This is impossible, Judge Williams whispered. These people had inside information about confidential court proceedings. The recording continued, revealing names, dates, and specific details about how certain cases had been manipulated. The men discussed payments made to various individuals, documents that had been altered or concealed, and plans to influence future cases. Detective Chen was taking detailed notes as the recording played, identifying names and case references that would need immediate investigation. Several of the cases mentioned were high-profile criminal trials that had resulted in significant convictions and financial judgments. As the first recording ended, David Kim checked the file directory and discovered that each recording was labeled with specific case numbers and dates. The organization suggested that someone had been systematically documenting illegal activities over an extended period. Play the recording dated June 8th, District Attorney Foster requested, referencing one of the case numbers from the documents they had found. This recording revealed even more disturbing information. The conversation included details about bribing court personnel, accessing confidential jury deliberation information, and coordinating with defense attorneys to manipulate case outcomes. Judge Williams stood up abruptly, her face showing a mixture of anger and disbelief. "These recordings describe systematic corruption of cases in my courtroom," she said. "Someone was recording evidence of crimes being committed right under my nose." The investigation team realized they were dealing with something much larger than anyone had initially suspected. The hidden materials documented an extensive criminal conspiracy involving multiple individuals within the court system. Sarah watched Rex, who had remained calm throughout the playback of the recordings. His initial detection had uncovered what appeared to be evidence of one of the most significant corruption scandals in the courthouse's history. David Kim continued, examining the hard drive, and discovered it contained thousands of documents, photographs, and additional audio files. The digital evidence appeared to document financial transactions, meeting schedules, and detailed plans for influencing specific court cases. The photographs that had been found in the container were examined next. They showed secret meetings between individuals who had been involved in the cases referenced in the audio recordings. Some photos appeared to have been taken covertly, suggesting someone had been gathering evidence of the illegal activities. Detective Chen identified several people in the photographs as former court employees, attorneys, and individuals who had been defendants or witnesses in major cases heard in Courtroom 3B. The photos provided visual evidence to support the activities described in the audio recordings. District Attorney Foster studied the timeline of the materials and made a startling realization. These materials were hidden approximately 6 months after the last recorded date, she said. Someone was documenting this corruption, and then decided to hide the evidence. Judge Williams reviewed more of the documents and discovered that many of them were copies of official court records that had been altered or modified. The original versions were significantly different from what had been presented during the actual trials. "This explains some verdicts that surprised me at the time," Judge Williams said grimly. "Cases where the evidence seemed clear-cut but the outcomes were unexpected." The investigation team began to understand that they were looking at evidence collected by someone inside the corruption scheme who had decided to preserve proof of the illegal activities. The person had carefully documented everything and then hidden it in a location where it might eventually be discovered. Rex's detection had uncovered what appeared to be an insurance policy created by someone involved in the corruption who wanted to protect themselves or potentially expose the scheme at a later time. As more recordings were played, additional names were revealed, including some current courthouse employees and attorneys who were still practicing in the area. The scope of the corruption appeared to be much broader than anyone had initially imagined. Judge Williams listened to a recording that discussed her personally, including comments about her decision-making patterns and strategies for influencing her rulings on specific cases. The violation of her courtroom and judicial integrity was deeply disturbing. "I've presided over cases where people's lives and freedom were at stake," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "To learn that some of those proceedings were corrupted by criminal activity, it's devastating." The evidence suggested that multiple wrongful convictions might have occurred, along with cases where guilty parties might have escaped justice through the coordinated corruption scheme. District Attorney Foster immediately began preparations for a comprehensive investigation that would review every case referenced in the hidden materials. The investigation would likely take months and could result in the overturning of multiple convictions and the filing of new criminal charges. Rex had done more than just find hidden evidence. He had potentially uncovered one of the most significant judicial corruption cases in the region's history. His training and instincts had led to a discovery that would impact the lives of countless people who had been affected by the corrupted court proceedings. The days following Rex's discovery turned the courthouse into the center of one of the largest corruption investigations in the state's history. District Attorney Foster assembled a task force of investigators, prosecutors, and legal experts to examine every aspect of the hidden evidence. Judge Williams voluntarily stepped down from hearing new cases while the investigation proceeded. The emotional toll of learning that her courtroom had been compromised was evident, but her cooperation with investigators was complete and professional. Sarah and Rex found themselves at the center of media attention as news of the discovery spread. Rex became famous as the police dog who uncovered courthouse corruption, but Sarah made sure to protect him from the overwhelming attention and maintain his normal routine. The investigation revealed that the hidden evidence had been placed by Martin Rodriguez, a former court clerk who had worked in the courthouse for 12 years. Rodriguez had been part of the corruption scheme but became concerned about the extent of the illegal activities and decided to document everything as protection. Rodriguez had died in a car accident 6 months after hiding the evidence, which explained why the materials had remained undiscovered for so long. His widow, Maria Rodriguez, came forward after learning about the discovery and confirmed that her husband had been planning to expose the corruption before his death. Martin told me he was scared. Maria Rodriguez explained to investigators. He said he had made mistakes but wanted to make things right. He spent months copying documents and recording conversations, hoping to build a case against the people who were running the scheme. The investigation identified 12 individuals who had been involved in the corruption ring, including 2 former judges, 4 attorneys, 3 court clerks, and several defendants who had participated in the scheme to reduce their sentences. Detective Chen led the effort to cross-reference the evidence with court records and discovered that over 60 cases had been affected by the corruption. Some cases involved wrongful convictions of innocent people, while others resulted in guilty individuals receiving reduced sentences through bribery and evidence manipulation. The most shocking revelation came when investigators realized that the corruption scheme had generated over $2 million in illegal payments over the 18-month period documented in the hidden evidence. The money had been distributed among the participants and used to influence case outcomes systematically. Rex's discovery led to the immediate suspension of 5 courthouse employees who were still working in the system. Their access to confidential information and case files was revoked while investigations into their involvement continued. Judge Williams worked closely with investigators to review every case she had presided over during the period covered by the hidden evidence. The process was emotionally difficult for her, as she had to confront the possibility that her decisions had been influenced by false or manipulated evidence. I became a judge to serve justice, Judge Williams told investigators. Learning that criminals were using my courtroom to subvert justice is the most painful experience of my career. The investigation uncovered specific details about how the corruption scheme operated. Court clerks would provide inside information about case scheduling, jury selection, and evidence presentation. Attorneys would coordinate with defendants to arrange payments for favorable treatment, and judges would receive bribes to influence their rulings. Sarah received recognition from the police department for Rex's outstanding detection work, but she was more focused on the impact their discovery was having on the justice system. Dozens of people who had been wrongfully convicted were now eligible for appeals and potential release from prison. Rex continued his normal duties with Sarah, but the courthouse became a regular part of their patrol route. Security Chief Hayes requested their presence during the ongoing investigation to ensure no additional evidence had been hidden in other locations. The investigation expanded beyond the courthouse when digital evidence from the hard drive revealed connections to organized crime figures and political corruption in other parts of the city. The FBI became involved in the case, recognizing its significance to federal law enforcement efforts. Maria Rodriguez provided additional information about her husband's activities before his death. She revealed that Martin had been planning to contact federal authorities but wanted to gather more evidence before making his accusations. His sudden death had prevented him from exposing the scheme when he had originally planned. The hidden evidence also revealed that some defense attorneys had been working with prosecutors to manipulate case outcomes for their mutual benefit. This revelation led to ethics investigations by the State Bar Association and the potential disbarment of several attorneys. Rex's discovery had consequences that extended far beyond the courthouse walls. Families of wrongfully convicted individuals began contacting attorneys to pursue appeals Based on the new evidence, the State Attorney General's office announced a comprehensive review of the criminal justice system to prevent similar corruption in the future. The investigation revealed that the corruption scheme had been carefully planned and executed over several years. The participants had used coded language, secret meeting locations, and sophisticated methods to avoid detection. Only Martin Rodriguez's decision to document their activities had provided the evidence needed to expose them. Judge Williams testified before a state legislative committee about the need for increased oversight and security measures in courthouses. Her testimony, combined with the evidence Rex had helped uncover, led to new legislation requiring enhanced monitoring of court proceedings and stricter background checks for court personnel. The financial investigation revealed that the corruption scheme had cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. In addition to the direct bribes paid by participants, court proceedings had been delayed, resources had been wasted, and the public's trust in the justice system had been violated. Sarah reflected on how a routine patrol with Rex had led to such a significant discovery. The trust she had developed in Rex's instincts over their 3 years together had been validated in the most dramatic way possible. His detection abilities had uncovered corruption that might never have been discovered otherwise. The investigation also revealed that Rex's successful detection was partly due to his training in electronic device detection. The recording device and hard drive in the hidden container had emitted subtle electronic signatures that Rex's specialized training had taught him to identify. As the investigation continued, more evidence emerged about the scope and impact of the corruption scheme. The hidden materials Rex had found were just the beginning of a complex criminal conspiracy that had affected the lives of hundreds of people who had passed through the corrupted court system. 6 months after Rex's remarkable discovery, the full impact of the courthouse corruption investigation had transformed the entire judicial system in the region. The hidden evidence he had detected beneath the courtroom bench had led to one of the most comprehensive justice reform efforts in the state's history. All 12 individuals identified in the corruption scheme had been arrested and charged with various crimes, including bribery, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and racketeering. The trials were being held in a different courthouse to ensure fairness and avoid any appearance of impropriety. Judge Williams had been cleared of any wrongdoing and returned to the bench with renewed dedication to judicial integrity. The investigation confirmed that she had been an unwitting victim of the corruption scheme, manipulated by false evidence and corrupted proceedings without her knowledge. Rex didn't just find hidden evidence, Judge Williams said during a press conference. He helped restore faith in our justice system by exposing corruption that was undermining everything we're supposed to represent. The most significant outcome of the investigation was the exoneration of 23 people who had been wrongfully convicted due to the corrupted proceedings. These individuals had their convictions overturned and were released from prison, with several receiving substantial compensation for their wrongful imprisonment. Among those exonerated was Marcus Thompson, a father of 2 who had been convicted of armed robbery based on falsified evidence. He had spent 3 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. When he was released, one of his first requests was to meet Rex, the dog who had uncovered the evidence that proved his innocence. "This dog gave me my life back," Marcus said as he knelt down to pet Rex during their meeting. "My children have their father home because of what he found." Sarah and Rex received numerous awards and recognition for their work, including the police department's highest honor for exceptional service. Rex was named Police Dog of the Year by the International Police Work Dog Association, an award that recognized his unique contribution to law enforcement. The investigation had also led to significant changes in courthouse security and oversight procedures. New technology was installed to monitor all areas of the courthouse, including hidden detection systems that could identify unauthorized modifications to the building structure. Regular K-9 sweeps of all courthouse facilities became standard procedure, with Rex and other detection dogs conducting monthly searches to ensure no additional evidence or contraband was being concealed. The courthouse had become one of the most secure judicial facilities in the country. The financial recovery from the corruption scheme exceeded $4 million when investigators traced all the illegal payments and recovered assets from the convicted participants. This money was used to compensate victims of the corrupted proceedings and fund Improvements to the judicial system. Martin Rodriguez was posthumously recognized as a whistleblower whose courage in documenting the corruption had made the entire investigation possible. A memorial plaque was installed in the courthouse lobby, honoring his contribution to justice. Despite the personal risks he had faced, Maria Rodriguez established a foundation in her husband's memory to support courthouse integrity and help families of wrongfully convicted individuals. Rex and Sarah participated in the foundation's launch event, where Rex received a special medal for his detection work. The corruption investigation had broader implications beyond the local courthouse. Federal authorities used the evidence to identify connections to organized crime networks in other states, leading to additional arrests and prosecutions across the region. New legislation was passed requiring enhanced background checks for all courthouse personnel, regular integrity audits of court proceedings, and mandatory reporting of suspicious activities. The law was nicknamed Rex's Law in honor of the police dog whose discovery had exposed the need for these reforms. Sarah found that her partnership with Rex had reached a new level of trust and understanding. Their experience during the investigation had demonstrated the importance of believing in Rex's instincts and following his lead, even when the significance wasn't immediately apparent. Rex continued his regular duties with Sarah, but he had become something of a celebrity in law enforcement circles. Police departments from around the country requested information about his training methods and detection techniques, leading to improvements in canine programs nationwide. The courthouse returned to normal operations, but with enhanced security measures and a renewed commitment to integrity. Judge Williams established new protocols for evidence handling and case management that became models for other courts throughout the state. 1 year after the discovery, a permanent exhibit was installed in the courthouse lobby, telling the story of how Rex's detection work had exposed the corruption scheme. The exhibit included photos of Rex and Sarah, along with information about the importance of police dogs in law enforcement. Rex's discovery had proven that sometimes the most significant breakthroughs come from unexpected sources. His training, instincts, and partnership with Sarah had combined to uncover corruption that could have continued indefinitely without intervention. The story became a case study in police academies and judicial training programs, demonstrating the importance of following proper procedures, trusting trained detection animals, and maintaining vigilance against corruption in all forms. Sarah often reflected on that Tuesday afternoon when Rex had first pulled her toward the courthouse. What had begun as a routine patrol had become a career-defining moment that had impacted hundreds of lives and reformed an entire judicial system. Rex, for his part, remained focused on his daily work with Sarah. He couldn't understand the significance of what he had accomplished, but he knew he had done his job well. The treats, praise, and attention he received were nice, but his greatest satisfaction came from the partnership he shared with Sarah and the work they did together every day. The courthouse had been transformed from a place where justice had been corrupted into a symbol of integrity and reform. Rex's simple act of following his nose had reminded everyone involved in the justice system that truth has a way of coming to light, even when it's buried beneath marble floors and hidden from view. The investigation was finally closed, but its impact would continue for years to come. Rex had proven that heroes come in all forms, and sometimes the most important discoveries are made by those who simply follow their instincts and never give up on finding the truth.